So at this time, we will bring up our next speaker, the beautiful Kenia. Are you here, Kenia? All right, good. Kenia Nunez. She's the Director Entrepreneurship Center here at Hofstra University. Kenia is the director, as I mentioned, of the Entrepreneurship Assistance Center program at Hofstra. In her role, she supports the growth of small businesses by providing them with guidance, mentorship, and connecting them with resources. In addition to her work at Hofstra, Kenia also has a company called Shabby Gems, providing leadership, entrepreneurship, and wellness training. Kenia has worked with underdeserved teens in the New York City and Long Island, teaching yoga, self-care, leadership in English and Spanish. She has customized trainings for teens, the special needs community, immigrants, and teachers. Kenia has led trainings for hospitals, various government agencies, executives, and for employees at Rikers Island. At this time, we welcome Kenia.
Hello, everyone. Hello. It's so nice and such a relief to see familiar faces. But the good thing is I don't see without glasses, so it actually gives me comfort because everyone's just a big blur. I do that on purpose. My glasses are over there. So this was May 7th, almost 10 years ago. These are my two beautiful daughters. And this was the day that they had their dance recital pictures. I took this picture at 4 p.m. This was also the worst day of my life. Just 2 hours prior, I stood in a hospital room holding their dad's hand, waiting for him to take his last breath. His inhale and exhale was consistent at 5 seconds, and then it quickly went to 6. But then it held steady at 7 seconds. I knew the longer he took to take his next breath, the more I should prepare for his final moment. I was distracted by a phone call and then let go of his hand and turned around to get my phone from my purse. I told the person on the other line that I would have to call them back. I don't recall what she said, but I do remember what I heard. I heard nothing. I missed his last breath. I turned around with tears streaming down my face and stared in disbelief. I grabbed his hand and then it happened. One big final exhale. And here's where my story begins. When he took his last breath, it was as if I had taken my first. Sometimes life only makes sense in reverse, and for me at 39 years old, the movie of my life began to play, and everything began to make sense, but in reverse. So today, it's an honor to speak before you today, on a day that is very special to me. Today would have been his 49th birthday. So I thought long and hard about what I wanted to speak about today, because of course I work at Hofstra. I'm like, do I wear my Hofstra hat? Do I wear my Kenia hat? Do I go deep and crazy? And so it was hard for me. I juggled. I actually wrote this morning because I was like, whatever speaks to me, I will write it. And nothing really spoke to me all week because I had so much to say. And so this morning at 6 a.m., this is what I was doing. So when Dr. Neva asked me a few days ago, what is the name of your speech? I panicked because I was like, I haven't written it. But then I told her, yes, the 4M's to holistic success. I didn't even write it yet. So I was like, that's where we'll go with. And because in order to be, it's important because in order to be truly successful in business, we need to approach it through a holistic lens. We can be very successful in our career, but if our home life feels like it's consistently falling apart, then what does it matter? And on the other end, we can really work really hard in our 9 to 5, right? But if we're not validated and compensated fairly, that will inevitably trickle into our home life and affect our quality of life. So I actually ended up working at Hofstra University by telling my story, so I combined both because I'm not going to be true to who I am. I'm a storyteller. So I was in a healthcare competition in 2019, pitching my culturally responsive yoga program. I should back up. I was a secretary for 20 years. My mom was a sweatshop worker. I'll get to that in a moment. But the bar was really low, so she was just like, just be a secretary. So I was a secretary for 20 years. I could do that. But I was the best secretary because she said, whatever you do, be the best at it. So she cleaned for a living. She ended up working as a housekeeper. She's retiring this month. I'm so proud of her. Thank you. I know, I'm so proud of her. And she said, whatever you do, even if it's cleaning toilets, be the best at it. So I was the best darn executive secretary. I was making over 6 figures like 15 years ago. So I was really, really good at it. But when my husband passed away, I was like, there has to be more to life. There has to be more to life. So I started teaching what I learned in crisis. And I ended up quitting my job, bad move. He had life insurance. I exhausted all my life insurance pursuing my life's purpose. And that was not good. That was not a good move, but you know, it all makes sense today, so it's all good. So I was in this competition, and I was gunning to win it. It was a $75,000 prize. I'm like, I got this. But then something happened. I got a notice in a newsletter that said they were looking for an assistant dean of entrepreneurship. I had zero experience teaching entrepreneurship, but I didn't have the credentials, but what I did have was the credibility, and someone said it before, I had courage. I finally built courage, right? Death woke me up. That's why when I say, when he took his last breath, I was like, what the hell have I been doing for 40 years of my life? And that's when I pitched why I was the perfect person for the position. So before I dive into the 4M model, I would like to share a little bit more why I'm so passionate about what I'm going to share. So I was born to a Dominican single immigrant mother. She was only 17. At the age of 5, trauma entered our lives in the form of my stepfather. I was the first to do everything. First to own a credit card, first to own a car, first to graduate college, and first to own a home. My mom worked in a sweatshop, as I mentioned, and her dream for me was to work in an office. Quiero que hagas copias. I want you to make copies. That was her career goal for me. Okay, Mom. The bar was so low because her only goal for me was not to work in a sweatshop. Oh, sorry. Okay. So I got that office job, became a secretary, and I had no mentors, no access to mental health resources. I didn't feel worthy either. I didn't even know that I had unresolved trauma. And so at 25, I got married, had my first child, a child on the spectrum, who's now 22, and then had 2 more kids by the time I was 33. Looking back, I had major mental health issues, but because trauma travels with you, wherever you go, there you are. It traveled with me, and it never went away. So as a wife, I just didn't know how to be a wife. I didn't really know how to be a mom. So in hindsight, I can go back and look and say, wow, I emasculated my husband for 13 years of my marriage because I thought that's what love was supposed to be. He has to love me more than I love him. Very unhealthy, but that's what trauma does. So then in 2012, while battling my own darkness, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. Within a few months, he had stage 4. I was left with 3 kids, 5, 9, and 12. In the process of my grief, I approached my healing through a holistic lens. I was able to rewire my brain. My favorite word on the planet is neuroplasticity. Yes, isn't it? I love that word. Really, I live by that, and I teach it. I'll stand in the supermarket and teach it. So because that's how I healed my trauma. So I became the strongest physically, mentally, and spiritually that had ever been in my life. So when I was at his funeral wearing 6-inch heels, wearing white, and my kids were there, and we had a celebration of life, I was judged. And I understood it. Culture didn't permit that. And the people that didn't realize that in trying to save his life, I saved my own, didn't get it. And I had to really, really, really process that. And it took a toll on me mentally. And so how does this connect with business and career? You know, it's interesting, but I have to, I skipped a very important piece of this that I want to share. So in being raised by my Dominican mom, I also, you know, my husband had undiagnosed Asperger's. I didn't know that. He was diagnosed in his 30s, late 30s, because my son was autistic. And I was like, dude, something's wrong with you too. Right? I didn't know. No, for real. This is how I thought. I didn't have. No one was leading me in the right direction. And I was just like, you know, it was a joke. And he was like, sure, I'll go get diagnosed if you go get diagnosed for crazy. Because I was, you know, I was like, sure. But he did, and he was diagnosed. And so how does this all connect with business and career? So in this story I just told, there were 4 main characters that comprise of the very society we see today. A single mother who is uneducated, has a dead-end job where she's grossly underpaid and underappreciated. A college graduate, me, who checked off all the boxes and had dreams but didn't know how to achieve them because of her limiting beliefs, AKA trauma. A man, my husband, who had undiagnosed Asperger's for most of his life, never graduated high school but still owned 3 furniture businesses, but had no access to support when the stock market crashed in 2008. So his business began to decline, and you know what else declined? His health. And there's the connection. And then there's my son on the autism spectrum, just like my husband. An SAT score of almost 1,400, a recipient of the Presidential Scholarship at the private university he attended, and now a college graduate with honors. Yes, right? Here's the next part. And currently unemployed, navigating to where he fits into workforce as an adult with a disability. So that's facts, right? So how do we support each other when it comes to workforce development? How do we support our children, our community, the diagnosed, the undiagnosed, and those navigating trauma? I promise I'm getting to it. So a few weeks ago, I was invited to sit at a table with individuals working on a $400 billion project. The project is called Tolosa, and it's a future city in America, a city that aspires to be the model for education, healthcare, and workforce development. And do you know who they invited to write the workforce development piece? Me, the secretary who made copies. And thank you. Well, that's cool. That's the power of healing your trauma. You can go from thinking you're only worthy for making copies to saying, I'm ready and I am qualified. So I thought about tweaking this presentation content a bit so I can make it more relevant to the times we're living in now. But I was like, no, the future is now. We need to think ahead and see where we should be headed as a united front. So, the 4M model. The 4M model I put together for Tolosa that they asked me, I was like, sure, I'll put this together. I love acronyms, I love, just piecing things together. Is a holistic approach to the future of workforce development needed for sustainability and innovation, helping individuals prepare for new opportunities, pivot into a new career, or prosper in their current workplace. The 4M model takes into consideration all humans, regardless of age, gender, race, sexual orientation, disability, education, income, or socioeconomic status. So let's look at the 4M's: mindset, mentorship, motivation, and money. Mindset is the foundation of it all because our past can negatively impact our mindset today and our belief system, right? And then mentorship. According to a 2020 Harvard Business Review, poor mentorship can be worse than no mentorship at all. That sucks. That hit me hard. I was like, ooh, I had bad mentorship. It makes sense. When I developed the self-care app, I wanted to develop a self-care app, so I won't get into it. There's so many things I can talk about. I was able to extend my husband's life by 5 months when the 3 doctors confirmed he would only live for 2 weeks. That was through a self-care model I created in 2012 based on over $40,000 that we spent seeing holistic doctors, integrative doctors, nutritionists, yogis, everybody. I developed a method called Savvy Gems, which I wrote, and the book became an Amazon bestseller, all that good stuff. When I presented it to my boss at the time, who was a venture capitalist, I said, look, we need this. We need to incorporate nutrition, right? I put sleep. The A was for alkaline diet. The V was for vision and vitamins and all these stuff, and your purpose, and the G is guidance. And I went through this whole thing, and he was like, nobody wants your crap. And I was like, and look at where self-care is today, right? And I still don't see the app the way I'd like to see it, so I'm gonna create it. So the point is that, I had bad mentorship. I'm thinking he's a man who sold a company for $225 million. If he says your stuff sucks, I'm gonna believe it. No, he sucks. and you know what the funny thing is? He's in wellness today. I'm like, I'm watching you. So motivation is the third one. Is one of the key forces behind any human behavior, and life and work are no exception. And then finally, money. Money is not just about what's in your paycheck, but money that is put back in your pocket because you don't have to spend it when invaluable resources are available to you. So here is a interesting data that came out from a CNBC report. About 50 million people quit their jobs last year. And most didn't quit the workforce entirely because they wanted to just quit and do their own thing. They went for a new job. So according to the World Economic Forum, 41% resigned due to the lack of career development, and 26% resigned due to the lack of support for their health and well-being. If you look at the chart, you will take note that I added a color code to each one to prove that the 4M model works. They all fall under one of those. Whether they quit because of their mindset or their mental health was being compromised, or because of lack of motivation, lack of mentors, or inadequate compensation or money. So let's dive into it a little bit, and I'll do it real quick. So there's a silent destroyer that we are not addressing in workforce development. It's called ACEs. I learned about ACEs when I was teaching my method on Facebook. Remember, I quit my job to fulfill my purpose and make no money. And a principal saw my work, thankfully, and he saved me. He was like, whatever you're doing on Facebook, come to my school. I didn't realize that his school was a suspension high school in the Bronx, where all the kids had litigation cases. Every single student was a student of color. And I was like, holy crap, why am I here? And they were all boys, men. They ranged from 16 to 21 years old. And I was like, okay guys, so this is what we're gonna do. And they checked me real fast. They were like, I was trying to teach them yoga because I became yoga certified. Yeah. Try to put young black men in downward dog. Yeah, they were like, no, we're not doing that. So that's when I started creating my culturally responsive programs. I'm like, how do I teach them yoga and meet them where they are? And I was able to do that because they taught me how to teach them. So that's when I learned about ACEs. These students had crazy ACEs. And the principal said, hey, do you want to see their file? And I was like, absolutely not. I don't care what they did. I don't want to see it. I'll just teach them. But ACEs, the economic cost totals hundreds of billions of dollars each year. 10% reduction in ACEs could save $56 billion. Our past experiences affect the way we view and show up to the world each and every day. There are 10 main ACEs. I was a perfect 10 out of 10. No wonder I was always depressed and had suicidal ideations prior to my husband having cancer. ACEs affect 61% of adults. They include physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect. And those are the 10. Thankfully, we're up to speed, and now we've added discrimination, poverty, racism, violence, and bereavement. So what is the solution? Employers need to provide, we get our health care from our employers, right? They need to provide culturally competent care, trauma-informed care with diverse therapists, free education in health and wellness. One of my daughters struggles with a major issue. Thank you, yes, that's good. I agree. One of my daughters struggled really bad during the pandemic, and the therapist that was specialized was $500 an hour, and she was awful. She was awful. She was not diverse. She did not speak to my daughter. It was nothing, all just because she had certain credentials, and that's I went to her, and $3,000 later, I'm like, what is happening? I was able to help my daughter, teaching her how to rewire her brain. Her mom helped her. And that's the power of understanding, right? Culturally responsive care. So then there's mentorship, access to mentors. We have a lot of access to marginal mentorship, but we have also a lack of access to impactful mentorship. And so what's the solution here? Compatible mentorship, where the company or agency provides an assessment of the mentee and potential mentors to create a compatible match. Incentive for mentors. Geez, we're all busy. We need incentives, anything, right? That makes us like just whatever it is, even if it's an award. Here's her award for being the best mentor at work, whatever it is, right? We all need validation. Recognizing and rewarding great mentors. And mentors in residence, I don't even know if that exists or if I made it up, but just like ERGs, employee resource groups, MIRs would provide continual guidance and training for the employee or job seeker. And finally, access to sponsors that are invested in the protege's success. Not just those that cheer for us, you're amazing, but those that will open doors and help us break ceilings. Yes. Big difference between a sponsor and a mentor. Then we're going to move on to motivation. Then there's motivation. How do we motivate those that are looking to prepare for the workforce? Like my son, we meet people where they are. We can either align them talent with their purpose or help train them for existing industry demands. According to Psychology Today, having purpose is paramount to beating depression. So we need to provide access to paid internships, accelerators, boot camps, summer youth programs. When our kids are home in the summer, they should be aligned with opportunities. National Grid for Good has it right. They have programs starting at 3 years old teaching children about energy. And they're doing amazing work. It's a really great model. And for those looking to pivot or prosper in the workplace, we need to also meet them where they are. Flexible schedules, hybrid or remote work, no-cost training and certifications. How am I doing on time? Bad? Okay, 1 minute. Then I can't go through it all. So money is the next one, and that really is about just being able to get back in your pocket, right? It's getting access, not just getting MWB certified, but help us get to the billions of dollars. Help us to get, I'm a vendor for New York, yes! I'm a vendor for New York City. I've had principals call me urgently. I have my 9 to 5. They'll call me, hey, I have $5,000. Can you just, talk? I've been paid $5,000 for 30 minutes. That doesn't happen all the time, but the money is out there, billions. There's also, let's talk about offshore wind, billions of dollars also. Where is the connection for us to be able to access that money? So I'll just wrap up because I got a lot to say. I'm just gonna end up, my story ends really well. I am remarried now. I have 5 children. Thank you. I love my husband. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, it's kind of annoying, I know. So, I also want to say my greatest passion is teaching people what I learned in crisis, especially teaching young people. And I'll just share a quick story. I don't know if she's here. I invited her, but my daughter, who also attends Hofstra, she last year, I really taught her how to rewire her brain and the power of neuroplasticity. And her motto is, you'll never know unless you try. Last year, she was one of 18-year-olds who ran the New York City Marathon out of 48,000 runners. And then 3 weeks later, she was like, I'm just going to join a pageant. And I'm like, Natalia, you walk like a baby duck. How are you going to do this? Like you don't even, you don't have a pageant. Like, we don't have time. And she's like, I got this, Mom. She walked away with the title, with a 0 pageant experience. So I'm just happy to say that that's what it is, failing forward and just trying and collaborating. And I will say there is power in sisterhood. Not just collaboration, but the power to money, which leads to the power for decision-making process. So, yeah, sisterhood is everything. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Kenia Nunez.
We are going to welcome the esteemed Assemblywoman, Michelle Solage. Give it up, y'all. And an applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just thrilled to be here at the 2023 International Women's Day Conference. And it's nice to be back in person, right? Yes. But once again, my name is Assemblywoman Solage, and I represent a portion of Nassau County, Long Island. I'm Deputy Majority Leader of the State Assembly. I'm also Chair of the Black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Asian Caucus. And I thank so many people here because there was a time where people would look at me and they didn't believe in the vision and dream in my head. And the only person that really, like there were people out there who didn't believe in me, but those people believed in me. And I'm grateful for that. And so we need to know that all the time, us as women, people look at us and think we are the weak gender, right? But I tell people, no, we are the stronger one, right? When God made Adam and Eve, you saw he made a mistake with Adam, and he said, I need to do it again and create Eve, right? Yeah, right. When they said that men are the head of the family, we know that women are the neck. And if you ever had neck pain, dude, your whole life is over, right? Because, we are there, we turn, we make everything run. And then, the phrase, behind every strong man is an even stronger woman, right? And so we know as a gender, it's so important. I'm sorry, man, I'm going to apologize to all the men. I love you. Give them a round of applause, right? We love you. You lift heavy things for us, I know. But we are here to think. We are the thinkers. We are the promoters. We are the ones that build. And so today we're here to say to our fellow women, it's a time to shine. It's our time to show the world what we're made of. We're intelligent, we're strong, we are capable. And the best part is that we can do it in our favorite pair of shoes, right? We can do everything. And so it's our time as a society to take what's ours. We need to make sure that we're galvanizing our resources and being united and networking. Because we know that there are many challenges of being the CEO. And let's face it, being CEO is really just saying how to make money without sacrificing your sanity. Because we gotta balance it all, right? But I really want to talk to you about why we need to step forward as women. Why we need to start building our power and making sure that we empower each other, whether it's business, whether it's professionally, whether it's through government. Because we know that we've been at a disadvantage. The gender gap is real. When we talk about us going for jobs, we know that we are paid less, we are given more work, and we're not appreciated. But how do we stop and we build those bridges? How do we make sure that we're getting ours? And so, sisters, I'm telling you, now is the time that we need to do. So when I first ran for the assembly, I remember walking in, so I won, I walked into the assembly, and I had someone very high in the assembly sit me down. And they said, okay, you're a rising star. You're going to do great things in this world. But they said there are 2 things you don't do as a woman. First, don't get a dog. She said to me, don't get a dog. I said, what, a dog? Okay, whatever. And then second, she said, don't have kids. This is before I had kids. Yeah, she said it's going to ruin your career because people are going to see that you're not serious. And I recognize as a culture that as women, we cannot be mothers and also professionals. And it made me realize that there's something wrong. And so soon after I had that conversation, I went out and I got a dog. I got a Chihuahua Beagle. I'm blessed to have him, you know, pees everywhere, but, you know, I got him for a reason. But, you know, soon after I was married and I was able to have kids, and I have 3 wonderful kids, and I'm telling you, that did not ruin my career, it only enhanced it. But it made me realize that we have a problem. We have a lack of childcare in our communities. When it comes to breastfeeding, we don't have lactation accommodations. It made me realize that when we need to have, you know, suggested scheduling, when we need to accommodate scheduling for women's needs, that's not done in the workplace. And so you know what I did? I changed the rules in Albany and I changed the game. And that's what we need to do. We need to change the game. And so well, there's a lot we need to do. So we need to make sure that we're networking, you know, making sure that we trust our instincts, because when something smells fishy, it's probably not the dessert, and we need to change it. So what do? We create a dessert company, right? Second, we need to not be afraid to delegate. Because you don't have to do everything yourself. You don't like cleaning up after your husband's mess? Make sure he cleans up, right? No, but the same thing in the workplace. We need to make sure that we're able to delegate, because we don't have to do it all, but we build a team around us that can delegate and support us, right? Third is network like crazy, like we're doing here today. I want you to turn around to your friends and neighbors. Turn around and say, hi, ma'am. Go ahead. Get their business cards, talk to them, making sure that you get connections in the room and staying connected with those people. You know, another thing that we need to do as women is making sure that we're confident in our abilities. And remembering that Beyonce wasn't just built in a day, but she runs the world now because she was confident, right? I trust her. She wears those no pants with those things. Oh, God, she's better than me, right? But again, we need to make sure that we're confident in ourselves, right, ladies? The world is always telling us what we need to do and how we need to do, but we need to make sure that we believe in our assets. Everyone is beautiful. Another thing someone said to me when I ran for office was like, oh, you need to straighten your hair, because curly hair is not professional, right? Especially black women, please speak to me, right? Where our hair is not considered professional, but we need to break that dynamic. Be who you are. Your hair is beautiful. Yeah, I have curly hair. I'm starting from the beginning, but I told them, no, I'm going to be who I am, because we have to be confident. And finally, you know, my sisters, don't forget to have fun. Running a business is hard work. Running a household is hard work, but it also should be enjoyable. And we need to make sure that you're taking time for yourself and doing that self-care, making sure that you relax, taking that spa day, going to that haven place, wherever that place is. I want to go now, right? But, you know, make sure that we have that work-life balance. Let's break the dynamic. Let's break the world and make sure it accommodates women, because we need to go out there and be the bosses. So I just appreciate you being here, and I thank you so much. But remember, we have to make sure that we're empowering ourselves financially and professionally. It's done in other communities. They invest money in their communities wholly and over again. So there's a phrase that said that on average, women have 37 pairs of shoes. We know that's a lot, but you know, let's say 37, okay? And on average, each one of those pairs of shoes is $100, all right? Imagine if we didn't buy that one pair of shoe and just invested that $100 in a friend's business. Or take that $100 and went to a locally owned woman's shop and invested that money. Please, take that $100 and invest it in a friend. Invest it in a business. Because right now, it's our time. We gotta take our time back and reclaim our time as our brand. So I thank you so much. And it's just a great opportunity to be with you here. And it's our time to shine, right? Can you say it? Our time to shine.
Round of applause again, please.